parties agreement signed on yesterday to tie the three political parties together to go through the 2023 elections. We're also going to be looking at recently a member of the CDC, Senator Cyril specific, went to Bomi County, trying to play support for another political candidate that is not within your range. And we're going to touch up on some of the things he said about non-performance of some government officials and calling the president to change then, whether it's not yet late. So basically, those are just the things we're going to be talking about. So welcome. We here Pram FN, focus on Liberia, KMTV, and other media institutions, OKFN. Welcome to this interview, sir. How you doing?
Good afternoon. Thank you very much for coming. I'm happy that you all are here. Let's get on with the discussions.
Okay, so let's start quickly or strictly to the issue of your framework document. Just bring us up to speed. Why is it necessary in the first place to re-look at the framework document and then resign it, so that you can have a working tools towards the Ottawa elections? Why is it important?
Well, basically, it's a requirement by the National Election Commission, and it is not a re-signing; it's a new agreement. It's a brand new framework agreement that is done based on the experience of the past 5 years. As I said in one of my interviews, I think yesterday, politics is progressive and is based on experience. We had a framework agreement that led us to victory. After the victory, we did not have the clauses and conditions actually performed as we were expected by all the parties. And now the agreement has expired. So we thought there was a need to do a new framework agreement to deal with those gray areas. There were one or two areas, maybe as we go along we can dwell on them, but the areas of nomination and appointment to positions at the end of the electoral process was a key factor. And because we did not do very well in that respect, you had dissension in the ranks of the parties, all three of the parties. The Congress had dissensions and all that, but this is the constitutional right of the president. In order to do that, we cannot say we're tying the president's hand to do those things. So we have to enshrine that in our framework agreement to make sure that the process is fluid. And those areas, there were two areas of importance. The major thing is to have broader participation, and that the new framework agreement have addressed that issue. And I think it was addressed sufficiently because all of the members of the National Executive Committee of the three parties were in the forum. It's not something that was done in isolation. There was a National Executive Committee, and the National Executive Committee of the Coalition for Democratic Change is the National Executive Committee of the three parties. So when you say the Coalition National Executive Committee meet, is about 100 and something prominent Liberians from all over the country representing the county chairpersons of each of the parties in the county. Now, once these clauses were agreed upon, it was time to sign. And before the signatories or the signature to the coalition agreement, you have to have a two-thirds majority of each of the National Executive Committee endorsing and giving the privilege and the right to the leadership. The leadership of the party is the national chairman, the standard bearer or the flag bearer of the party, and the National Secretary General. That's what the National Election Commission requires. But attached to that privilege or right to this should be a resolution from each executive committee granting the authority to the leaders to sign. The Congress went to their convention and got a two-thirds majority, nominating their standard bearer and giving them the authority to sign the new framework agreement. And so did the NPP have a resolution from the National Executive Committee comprising of a two-thirds majority and LPDP. So it becomes an issue of the leaders to sign. And that's where we were the other day. Once you have those three resolutions, it's considered that there is a framework agreement because it's been agreed by the National Executive Committee. The officers of the party would now have the mandate to sign. That's why when some people say one party, this individual did not sign, it is no longer the individual to sign. It is the office of the individual that signs. So, for example, if the national chairman is not present, the vice chairman for administration carries out the mandate of the National Executive Committee. Like we say, we are not in an area where we are breeding minority rule, where one or two people say, "Oh, we don't agree with that." I was one of those that vehemently opposed the signing of a framework agreement unless these gray areas were addressed. And as soon as they were addressed, I think most of the members of the leadership of the two parties, LPDP and the NPP, felt that it was all right to proceed to sign. And some of us ended up signing the resolutions on behalf of the National Executive Committee. So that's the point that the agreement is at. There are discrepancies. I was reading an article this morning saying that Alex Tyler did not sign. Yes, there were reservations by Tyler, but there are discussions going on in reference to they are all Democrats and they believe in the democratic process. Chairman Bani also of the NPP had said that he took too much blame in the first time for not giving his partisans jobs, so he doesn't wish to commit himself to the agreement until those things are seen, which is that's his opinion. But he has only one vote on the National Executive Committee as national chairman. There's not a dictatorship where one or two individuals or the standard bearer or this person of the party say they don't agree, and so they will bring the agreement to a halt. No, the National Executive Committee has given the resolution, and the National Elections Commission have the listing of each executive committee. So when you submit the listing of the executive committee to the Election Commission, they are going to verify that and come up with their observation. But as it is, as a responsible institution under the coalition, we have ensured that you have a two-thirds majority from each of the parties and that the requisite officers are signing instead of the party.
So how the two-third majority is being determined, that's one thing someone will be asking. Maybe the two-third majority, someone will say, oh, the reason why the national chairman was not there, maybe it's because the two-third majority selection or constitution did not meet his consensus, or he was his consensus, so someone will still decide to stay back.
It's not whether or not that the National Executive Committee of the party is listed by the National Election Commission. Okay. They are all duly elected officers of the party in the counties, the county chairpersons, 15 county chairpersons, the national auxiliaries, the women, the youth, and the traditional association. And for NPP, you have the Napal group. So those are the four auxiliaries. They are represented at the National Executive Committee level. The advisory board is also on the National Executive Committee, and a core of officers ranging from the national chairman to 4 vice chairpersons, a controller, a financial vice president, and the secretary general with 5 or 6 assistant secretary generals for various things, mobilization, recruitment, and other things. So that is the composition of the National Executive Committee. So it is not something that you can go and create a list of a group of partisans to come and sign as members of the National Executive Committee. No, it's a listing that is filed at the National Election Commission at the end of every convention, and those in attendance. And then there's an additional document where the National Election Commission required that you should have asked, where does the National Executive Committee get its strength from to be able to sign such a document? The National Executive Committee derived its strength from a national convention. The convention gives the National Executive Committee the authorization. So the initial approval of the framework agreement was done at the convention. The convention of the party resolved, and that resolution from the convention is submitted to the National Election Commission at the base. The leadership of the party for this period is required to do A, B, C, and D by resolution. Then the National Executive Committee takes up the function and does that signing a resolution to give the privilege to the leadership to proceed to sign. And the leadership of the party would sign on the basis of that. And that is submitted to the National Election Commission and constitute a legal instrument. Okay. Because a handful of people cannot just get up and sign a resolution and it be registered and probated, by a legal officer before it's submitted to the Election Commission. So it authenticates it. There's no disparity with that. The fact that individual members of the National Executive Committee do not agree with that, that's dissension. I mean, that's politics. But you are all voted by the two-third majority. So like Chairman Bani said, yes, we recognize the fact that a two-third majority has signed the resolution, makes it legal and authentic for the party. But I have my reservations on signing. So your vice chairman will sign in your state. You are only one vote on the executive committee. That's how these institutions work, and that's how the democracy should work. Not like some of the parties that have one leader say A and everybody is supposed to say that. No, it is democratic in nature, and it must be done democratically through resolutions.
Okay. So for me, I'm a bit concerned with the disenchantment from Chairman Barney and Ellis Tyler. I don't know whether the coalition will be strong as compared to the 2017.
Well, yes, the coalition will remain strong because it's the membership of the party that makes the coalition strong, not the individual leaders. The individual leaders have their own following also, but those following are not the majority of the partisans. And you cannot sway. I mean, if any one of the leaders could sway the party to doing things, then you have not obtained a two-third majority resolution from the executive committee. If any one of them had any kind of absolute control, but the partisans look, politics is interest. They are looking at their own interest. The fact that they will be part of the decision-making process, they will be part of a government that is in power and authority, and they will have the opportunity to serve in other areas or get recommendations for themselves and their families. The political leader is not going to appoint you to a job. It is the party that will submit a listing for you to be able to obtain a job. So your interest, the interest of the parties become paramount in a setting like this, rather than the interest of individual members or leaders of the party. So that is where you have that. It doesn't make it any weaker. It's better if we are all agreed and supportive of something. We work together, and but it happens in the democratic process. There are things that Chairman Bani might support, other partisans may not. There are things that other partisans may support, and Chairman Bani will say, I do not support that. But it is only his view. It's not. His opinion cannot change the vote in a democratic process. Otherwise, it would have been done.
Okay, so my last for my so my colleagues will pick up from there. So now that Tyler is disenchanted, I don't know whether the coalition will put candidate against him in Bomi County.
It's not possible. It's not possible. It's not so much Alec Tyler. It is the LPDP party. When you join a coalition, the individual cease to exist. The party remains an institution by itself and makes its own decision and operate as a party. But when it comes to decisions of the coalition, you do that collectively. So the fact that an individual member of the party does not support the view doesn't mean that we not support the party. And it will be unless he comes as an independent candidate against the party, then it becomes an issue. But it's not likely that it will happen. As long as he is a LPDP leader and one of us, we will give him the type of support that he needs. There will be a primary for him to win the seat, to be able to be supported by the coalition. That is where decisions come, whether or not to make a determination at that point. But in the absence of that, we look at support for one and support for all.
No, still, there are other things that people would like to understand, because if you say there will be a primary,
there will be a primary.
Yeah, so
that's what
might beat him in a primary, and his efforts might be buried. So, except for typical example, the coalition say, okay, for people like you, we will reserve your seat as must win.
Indeed, you will have that. That is where you have discussions and negotiations going on. The framework agreements say that each candidate in the county and district will be subject to a primary. A primary could be by consensus. You have to look at that. Politics is that way. It's not tricky, but you can have consensus. Alec Tyler will definitely be a consensus candidate in Bomi as far as the coalition is concerned. Not that other parties will not go against him, but the fact that he's a member of the coalition and a leader of one of the parties, by consensus, he will be the candidate That's politics.
Before you came to the agreement, recently we listened to one of the key members of your party, Honorable Sir Joseph, pledging support to your major rival in the Unity Party, Kennedy Morris Etuma.
Well, yes, but Sir Joseph's friend from the Senate, he will go to support his friend. The coalition does not support that. That's his individual opinion. He can carry his people to go and help to vote for his friend. But they will be coming against the coalition with our candidate, and we will have a drove of candidates from all walks of life that will compete with them. So go support your friend. You can make a pronouncement that you're supporting your friend, but please do not say the coalition.
It undermines the coalition.
It does not undermine the coalition. The fact that one individual in the party says that they support a candidate does not undermine the coalition.
So what do you do to him as a ranking member
that
of the
will be
political
determined
party?
by his party. He's a member of the Congress for Democratic Change.
The
Congress will take an action if the need arises. If he can justify that, he can say that I said that to my friend before the framework agreement was signed. Now that the framework agreement is signed, I will withdraw my support for my friend and put my support behind the party. That's another way out. You see, you have to be balanced in your thing. It's very clear. He did it at a time that the framework agreement was not signed. And now that the framework agreement is signed and he's a responsible member of the coalition, he might make a U-turn in that. So it's possible.
But is there a specific clause within the framework that has to do a penalty for any of your ranking members or staff who go in line with similar situation of Sir Joseph pledging personal support to individuals?
The
against
constitution
the
of
coalition.
each party to the coalition have their own of grievance and ethics committees. Those are the people designated to deal with situations like that and inflict punishment or reprimand or whatever. So it comes from there. But the clause that covers that in the framework agreement says that all partisans of the coalition who lose elections in the primary will be obligated to support the coalition in that area and be otherwise compensated by and through their party. So you see, it is another clause that comes in to say that yes, you go for a primary. Yes, when you lose in the primary, consideration will be given to you in other branches of government as a party contestant in that district. That would more motivate you to encourage your supporters in the county to support the coalition as an institution.
Someone listening to you might be wondering, could you just, whether you could just call on Sir Joseph to desist or to come to the public now that because I'm very sure he was aware of the framework document being drafted to be signed.
Yeah, but that clause, the clause that's coming in now, are some of those clauses that were injected to appease other parties that first, the clause was clearly that where there's an incumbent for one party, none of the other parties will put up a candidate. But in the by-elections, we did that and we lost many seats. But those who were already in, that we knew, did not have the votes in the counties. And so we lost many seats as a consequence. So we are saying now that in order to put a candidate forward, we have to go to the constituency, where they come from, not handpick them from Monrovia and carry them to tell the people to vote for them. The people have to tell us who they want to vote for, and we will support that person financially and morally. And that is the way to do it. It's the only way that you know this teacher or this principal or this nurse or this market woman or this outstanding youth in the district is popular between and among his people.
In what way can that clause help the coalition to win elections?
Help us to identify prominent people in their district that will win elections for us. You have to identify them early enough and begin to boost them, encourage them, let the people see that the coalition is supportive of this candidate. They will gravitate towards him or her, and then we galvanize more and more numbers for the coalition. That's how it's politics. Most people don't do that. You think you pick John Brown from Monrovia because I know him and came to sign on and he will go and win the election there. He cannot. Even if you're sitting, you have to be visiting your people. Most of the legislators I've said earlier, they're not going to win their seats. They have to start working very hard with their people because most of them do not visit their people. The development projects do not reach to their people. And they're busy concerned here passing bills that would benefit themselves rather than to approve bills that would benefit the majority. How can you say that people are coming to your house for school fees so they should give you more money to be able to pay? Why don't you pass a bill to make education free at the district and nobody come to you for money? These are the kind of value judgment that should be made by leaders at the legislature who have the authority to make decisions. Make decisions for and on behalf of the majority of the people. The masses of the people, as many as possible, benefit from any law or any project is better. That way you become popular among your people. No one have to come and ask your people whether they want you. They will say, yes, we bring a petition to the Congress to admit our representative on their ticket.
And many people who listened to you yesterday on state radio calling for the president to do a reshuffle and implore some people who will work. You also identify that most of the people in the government, some of the people, let me say, are not functioning well. Many people think that your call is belated and that you are saying it because it's election time. What do you say to them?
It's not belated. You have several interviews of me, of my interviews during the course of the last 4 or 5 years. I can play them for you. I have all of them, where I've said that our nominees to government are not diligent in the discharge of their duties. These are Liberians. They may not be a coalition partisans. They may be from the opposition. They may be from anywhere. But they are Liberians performing these functions. I'm querying Liberians for not being patriotic, for not being diligent in the discharge. Any little duty they gave you to serve the Liberian people, even if it's a janitor. You go to certain administrative places, the spider web all over the place. The bathrooms are dirty. These are janitors that are doing that. It's not big shots. These are people that are employed at a certain level to perform their duties. They are not performing their duties. You have directors, assistant ministers, and deputy ministers who are in offices. You have secretaries that are in office all day on the internet. They don't even respond to letters. They don't even take the letters into their bosses for them to be able to reply. This is what we call people are not diligent in the discharge of their duties. They happen at all levels. Then to top it up, the senior administrators there do not motivate the people to work. They are looking after their own interests too. It's creating bottlenecks in the government. Go to the national legislature, you'll be surprised. Go there. There's no bathroom. There's no water system. I can be speaker here for 4 or 5 years and there's no running water in the capital, the main center of the country, the first branch of government. That's why I call it not being diligent. I mean, and I mean that. You cannot go to a place, the bathrooms are dirty. Go to the ministerial complex now, you can see the difference in various ministries. Some are deteriorating and others are what? Being elevated to another standard. It depends on the leadership. So that's why I'm calling on the president, that there are people who are not performing their duties, and we can identify them. It's not easy. It's not a rocket scientist to know that certain ministries and agencies are not functioning properly.
All right, so you made this call more than 2 or 3 times. I have interviewed you rather, and
Thank you.
made those calls.
Thank you.
But I mean, nothing has happened. This is the last year of your government. Do you think any action or steps taken by the president can they change anything?
This is the last year of the first term of our government. You have to reconstruct that statement. Because you can't say the last term of our government.
I know this is the last.
This is the last year of the first term
Okay.
of the CDC-led government.
When the second term
All right,
comes,
and
we'll see.
It's not related.
Okay.
The president can make decisions. You can establish a broad base. They have almost 31 jobs in government that have not been appointed. Board of directors have not been constituted. Board of directors, you can take for example, the maritime board have not been constituted. These are just one example. Other boards are not complete, they are incomplete. According to the statute, certain ministries of public operations who have 9 board members, they have 3 or 4, 7, some 6. These are statutory requirements. You can fill in these jobs by bringing in partisans and other people on board. You see? And so I don't think it's belated because there's room for improvement. If you're dynamic in the discharge of your duties, you can do whatever you can do in a few months. You can change the face of a whole ministry in a few months. I mean, not necessarily to your own, I mean, to the likeness of everybody, but you can change the dynamics. You cannot, maybe some certain areas you go, you cannot change the direction of the wind. but you have to change the direction of your sail. You see, the wind, you can't go against the wind, so you change how you're sailing, and you take another direction that the breeze will push you in that direction. So we have to get conscientious Liberians that are committed to national development, and people must read their statutory functions. You cannot be assistant minister for trade and you're doing that dividing gas, or you're sharing per dime. You must be assistant minister for trade and know your limitations and your functions. But I always said that I always ask the legislators, the senators, when you are passing people through the Senate that have been appointed to positions, you have the statute. The man or woman job is clearly described in the statute, what he or she is required to do. So you have to now quiz them on that. Are you aware that your function entails this and that and that? What methods are you going to use to implement those things, working along with others? That's the kind of question the senator should ask you. Now, what party you in, and what kind of clothes you wear to go to work, and which party you are in first. You don't need those kind of questions at the senatorial level. You need to quiz that nominee on the basis of their function for which they are nominated. Then you'll be able to determine their capacity to implement that duty or responsibility and report accordingly if they are not. You see, that's how we should work. We should learn to be committed to what we are doing. Don't take it for granted that John Brown has been appointed, so we got to pass him, go bring something, let pass you, and you don't need that kind of thing. You need to be conscientious.
Okay, I got two concerns, so that
Please,
we'll wrap up.
them.
Yeah, we'll wrap up. So the first one has to do with NADMOT partner is, civil society group recently rated the government to have scored just 8% of all 100 on promises made during its campaign time. That is the coalition government, your government. Do you think that is a failure on the part of the government? That's the first one. The second one is, I don't know whether you heard the president during one of his summons threatening that anybody leaves the coalition, they're going to fire all of their members that are employed in government. What do you make of that? Do you think that's what pressured the signing of the coalition document as fast as it was?
No, two things. Mm-hmm. The first question was...
80 out of 100.
Yes,
8 out of 100, not 80, 8 out of 100 percent.
8%. That is an opinion of a small group of people. Mm-hmm. So it is not. It doesn't think it has no magnitude in the first thing. Not that before somebody can get up and write something, that means it has some essence. It has no essence. You have to think on the capacity of the individuals or group, and to what extent are they successful, and what gave them the moral rectitude to make that kind of judgment or value judgment. So first of all, the first thing is to shoot it down and discount it, because it is not a proper representation of the reality. No Liberian will tell you that in the last 5 years that the government of the day have done 8%. They won't tell you that, because people can physically see. You can see progress. You can see something happening. You can see a lot of things happening, maybe not to your expectation or to full capacity, but there's a will. Once there's a will, there will be a way. And gradually, the opportunities will come to do better. But we can see things are progressing. So 8% is a very naive manner, and I question the capacity of that organization that wrote that report. And I can write a better report than that and instruct them on how to write reports. But that's not the issue. The next point you raised had to do with
dismissal
of any constituent member.
I myself laughed when I heard the president say that. I thought he was over. I mean, he went a little bit overboard, and maybe he was upset about things that people said. This thing they call deception, some people cannot solve it. But we as seasoned politicians, we know. And I said to the president, I said, listen, I won't even pay attention to Prince Johnson. I won't even pay attention to him. Because one of the most consistent things about Prince Johnson over the years is his consistent inconsistencies. He's most inconsistent. All the time, he's consistently inconsistent. You will see him in the next few months. He will come back running to the coalition to say, listen, this and that and the other. That's his way. You have to understand people. Now, let us look at the political geography of the country. First thing is that Prince Johnson became a member of the coalition after the first round in the last elections. Get that clear. We already had 40-something% when Prince Johnson came to join us. He was not an original signatory to the coalition. He joined as a constituent party. He and 6 other political parties came and joined us when we were preparing for the second round campaign. So, and look at that. In Nimba County, no announcement, but in Nimba you have to look at it. Prince Johnson have constantly represented about 35% of the people of Nimba County. Because one, he's tribalistic, so he represents only the Gills. You understand that? And it's a large number of people in there, but all of them now will not, even the younger generation of people will not follow him because he has not done anything much for them. And you cannot use the people's numerical strength or psychological numerical strength as a baiting tool. In a second round election for Nimba County, knowing the political geography and the dynamics, what we will do, there are 4 tribes, 5 tribes almost in Nimba County. In a second round bid, if you do not have the initial support from Nimba County in the first round, if there's a second round, you can galvanize more votes for Nimba than anyone, because you make offers on the government to various groups and sections and divisions in Nimba County. The Mandingos are there. You discuss with them, you discuss with the Mahanos, you discuss with the Crowns in Nimba County, and you'll be able to galvanize a lot of support, numerical support, by overtures and offers and discussions with the different groups in Nimba. That will neutralize Prince Johnson with 30% vote in Nimba. And even majority of the young people in Nimba would support the coalition because they are young people and want to see a future. And they are in Nimba County and they are seeing the type of development efforts that are going on in Nimba over the last 5 years. This is democracy's interest. Politics is strictly interest. You have other interested groups that know that Prince Johnson does not represent their interests when you talk about Nimba County. He's not speaking of them because they will go their own way, they have their own choices, and would support an initiative if they thought it was good for Nimba. One of the only times that you can get all the Nimba people to support one objective is when you play in the county beat. And Nimba County, all of them will support Nimba on that, but politically they are divided because their interests are divided. There are other tribes that are up against other tribes. You up against your brother from Nimba. You want to take his land that your father bought from him. It brings dissension in the ranks. It brings division among our people. And we should focus on trying to fix up those kind of things to keep unity and harmony in our country so that we can be able to get the type of support that you need to govern the people properly and provide for them. That is how I look at it. That's leadership. You have to have the interests of all at heart.
Do you think the inconsistency?
So the fact that the president made that threat, he has the will and the way to appoint and dismiss. I would hope that he will be dismissing some of the people that are not performing in government and putting other younger and more dynamic people in these jobs so that we can see the differences between now and the electoral time. I believe in that strongly. I've said that more than once. Because you have to change people. You have to create some sort of merit system where those who do well will be promoted and benefited, and those who are not performing well will be asked to, requested to, or be out. And been allowed to go in the private sector and see if they can be progressive on their own and wait for another opportunity.
Do you think one of the reasons for which Prince Johnson, Senator Prince Johnson, is consistently inconsistent is because the issue of the war crime code, so he doesn't go the SAWA war crime code, it's been discussed. He wants to link the SAWA, he feels that the person, either the government will renege on its implementation or so. Do you think that is responsible for some of the things it does?
This war crime code people always talking about. My view about the war crime code is this. If you have a body that would dispense justice in the proper manner without selective justice, pointing people finger, people lying on people and there, arresting them and trying to, then we have a way of fixing all the problems. But when you have people who come in and lean to one side and convict people even before they are tried, then you have a problem with that. So I don't know whether Prince is intimidated by the war crime code or not. I don't think he is, because he knows that, and not in I don't think in his valuable lifetime you have a war crimes court in Liberia. I don't think so, because the logistics, the idea. I mean, if you want to bring a war crime court here that you will spend $400-500 million to establish, why you don't give the money to our government? Let us try to develop the country and expand the country and do well for our young people, our disadvantaged youth. We need a government that will come in and provide a huge portion of the national budget to take care of generations of disadvantaged youth in this country, in every county. Why the legislature now not passing money in the budget? They increased their budget to 30-something million to get extra cars and extra money. Why did they not put in the budget $10 million for the disadvantaged youth? But they call them Zobo and keep driving them away from everywhere they go. But money could be put in annually on a revolving basis to create industries and factories, plantations, and agriculture extension programs to embrace our young people. I don't know whether you guys go out of town. Every major town you enter, you see a large number of young people. Look at the other day at the program marking the nomination, the extraordinary section of the executive committee for the nomination of the stand-up Darrell coalition. You saw the number of young people that were demonstrated in the street, the number of young people that were counted. I walked from the stadium all the way to UN Drive, and I could see that 90% of the people that were out there were young people. We have those volume of young people available in one or two counties, and we are not making provision to make sure that we provide a better life for them. It's a challenge. And that is why we're inserting that in the platform of our second term. That we must focus on that aspect of our society, the disadvantaged youth. They are the most valuable natural resources that we have. God gave us natural resources, human resources. There's nothing more natural and valuable than that. If we can use the natural resources for our generation, we have a young generation from 14 years old straight to 35, comprised of about 40% of our population. We must allocate huge portion of our national reserve, huge portion of our national revenue to making a better life for them. Otherwise, there's no need of governing a country. If you got that number of people that you go and ask to support you in a democratic process, and which we do at voting age, you must provide a better living standard and condition for them by opening opportunities. We need sports stadiums. We need to create people to become athletes and professionals. You see, and in field and track events. Need to build up institutions, academies that will train them, evaluate them, test them, examine them, bring in some strong coaches and things, and build institutions around the country. And absorb them. They can make money for themselves. They are physically able. They are not disabled people. Provide also for the disabled, but those who are able-bodied young men and women can learn. Some of them won't go to school now, so they can learn on working in a factory, learn on working in an industry. They can learn agriculture from an extension program and living in a community where they will be taking care of their families and earning money for themselves. So you have to open up the corridors there. These are some of the things that we're enshrining now in our platform for our second term. You're talking about implementation of an objective on the last promise. It's untrue. My proper evaluation of the promises made and those level of implementation is anywhere between 55 and 60%.
You think so?
I think so. I know so.
So
by looking at the agenda and looking at the things that I've done, it's not perfect. It's not nowhere near a full-scale passing grade, but efforts have been made. LEC has come of age. The water and sewer is increasing their capacity. There have been roads built, there have been hospitals and schools and free education to a certain extent, WIAC and all that. Women have played a major role, gender balance and all. These are some of the improvements. The correction institutions are coming alive. So you can say that things have happened. They may not have happened to the satisfaction of all, but we haven't seen anyone done better.
Okay. Thank you, Adema. Colleague want also wrap up, but just one simple question.
Please ask.
That just 1 minute you can answer that question. Let's assume, besides you being a member of the NPP, on what basis you could have supported a person we are? On what basis? What are some of those attributes you think you could have supported your own? Well, besides you being in the coalition, if you are not there.
Well, I think the only reason why I support the coalition is because my party is a part of the coalition. It's not because of any individual. It's because of my desire over the years to form a coalition of political parties with similar objectives and ideas. And the reason why I would support the Congress is because it's a grassroots party like the NPP. So I support the institution, and I'm helping to build the structure of the coalition all around the country. When we joined the coalition, the CDC, the Congress had structure in 1 or 2 counties, Montserrat and other places. Now, they use the broad-based structure of the NPP in 13 counties. We're small, but we're structured in 13 counties. Registered and in 13 counties, had a headquarters in 13 counties. So the Congress and the LPDP, where they did not have headquarters, used the NPP political base. That's what you call an administrative superstructure. You build a bigger structure on the basis on the existence of a small structure in an area. And that is why I thought that would be a good idea to form a coalition of political parties with similar ideas to contest the democratic process. That was another way of bringing our party that had been stigmatized over the years back into the fold of political decision making. That is something that I thought would be a wise idea. That's why we sat together and constructed an agreement that was airtight, that no one can just break away or withdraw. You have to give notice, you have to go to an executive committee meeting, you have to go to a convention to be able to withdraw from the coalition. You have to do that because of the bad experience of other collaborations that had happened in the past and the break off just before the electoral process. So it's from experience.
Thank you so much for affording all this opportunity to have the interaction with you. It was nice. Thanks for speaking to us, and this is how we take leave of you.
Thank you.